Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello my friends, I am so excited to be bringing you my June wrap up, which June went by so I couldn't even keep track of what was happening. It went by so quickly. And we're on the last day of June that I'm recording this today, which is crazy. But yeah, June ended up being a wonderful month. And I went a lot of amazing places and had a great time. First off, I have to tell you, my air conditioner has been out since I got back from Book Bonanza. So I do have a fan sitting right there blowing on me. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it in there, but you definitely will see my hair blowing. It's just gonna have to be because it's gonna get very hot today. It already gets warm in front of my lights, but I want to film. I haven't filmed much lately and I'm excited for the videos I'm filming today, but we just, have to be adaptable. So I got up as early as I could muster while it's still like coolish. And then yeah, I have a fan literally pointed right at me, which is helping. Also, the repairman is supposed to get here today. She said he would be here before the weekend. I dearly hope so, because over the weekend it's supposed to heat up quite a bit more. So we're hanging in. I'm still a very blessed woman to be able to have air conditioner, so there's that. But let's dive into this. Like I said, there was lots of trips I went on this month. I ended up taking an impromptu trip to Montana with my dad, who did also call me yesterday and asked me if I wanted to go to Colorado with him next week, which I mean I do kind of, but I have I have stuff going on in July where I'm like, no, I can't run away with you to another state right now, Dad. I need to focus on work, and which I want to be focusing on, by the way, but another time we'll do some road tripping again. But I had that trip, and then I took kind of a few days to stay with my sister in Pillager, and then we went to an amusement park, which was great. And then I just returned from Book Bonanza last weekend, as I have said, and that was so cool. Like, honestly, that was such an amazing trip and just very overwhelming, but very amazing in a lot of good ways. So yeah, I still managed to get through 44 books and read 14,041 pages, which is awesome. I won't be going over all 44 of those books in this video. If this is your first monthly wrap-up for me, well, hello. But I actually do weekly wrap-ups, or in this case, there's a couple bi-weekly wrap-ups that are coming. I'm actually about to film a 2-week worth of wrap-up after I do this video because of my traveling. But there's a playlist that I will link up here that has all of the books that I've read this year, so you can check those out. But when I do my monthly wrap-ups, I just talk about my 5 favorite books, so that's what we'll be doing today. The formats that I read these books in was 13 physical books, 8 audiobooks, 23 ebooks, and 8 ARCs that I got to read. The ratings of these books were, I had 1 new 6-star book, I had 6 5-stars, 7 4.5 stars, 10 4 stars, 5 3.5 stars, 11 3 stars, 2 2.5 stars, and 2 DNFs. The subgenres of these books were, I had 15 contemporaries, 4 dark romance, 5 dystopian, 3 erotic romance, 6 fan fictions, so happy that I was reading more of those this month, 5 fantasy books, 2 paranormal, and 4 sci-fi. So we really had a good spread this month. I love that. So yeah, we're gonna dive into my 5 favorite books of the month. And the first book that I wanted to gush about a little bit more is actually Forbidden by Carla Sorensen. This is the last book in the Ward Sisters series. I did end up skipping book 3 to get to this one. I will maybe go back to book 3. I'm not sure. It has some tropes I don't really care for, and I really was in the mood for this one. So I listened to the audiobook of this on AnyPlay, and this book I think is also a lot of people's favorites. It definitely is my favorite Carla Sorensen that I've read, and it also just gave me this really like comforting feeling reading it. I don't know. It was also a book that has a very low Steam rating for me. This one was only like a 1.5, but the way that Karla Sorensen wrote the longing and the chemistry between these two and the buildup, I found myself very satisfied with how it played out without needing anything extra to it. I found myself very satisfied with this couple. I just did. And I really love that. This book won my heart. So this book is a bit of a workplace romance. It has an age gap. It also has a widower, and it's a single father. Our hero, he has recently lost his wife. He used to be a professional fighter, and now he has bought his own gym. And this gym is keeping its staff, which our heroine is one of the staff members at this gym, and she is also one of the sisters of Logan Ward, who is I think he's a coach now, is what he's doing. I think that's what's happening now. And she works there, and they have this amazing chemistry right away, but he's not looking for anything new. I mean, his wife who died was the love of his life. She had passed away from cancer. And yeah, he has this lovely daughter, and our heroine, she actually has a nephew who's about the same age as this daughter. So like these kids end up becoming friends, which is really cute. So yeah, it is a romance between these two. It's not exactly forbidden funny enough. I mean, I know the book is called Forbidden and we're supposed to see it as forbidden, but I don't so much see it as forbidden as the fact that like the hero sees it as forbidden, but it's just a beautiful romance, and I had such a good time with it. And when I was done with it, I was like, you know, this book was a good respite from a lot of the, you know, high level of banging that happens in a lot of books that I read. But this one just really won me over with the romance and the longing in it. And there's something that I don't bring this up a lot because I love reading spicy romance and I'm never one to curb my appetite. But there is something to say for the fact that if we only are eating meals that are at a 4 chili pepper level, eventually we can become bored with some cuisine that takes a finer palate. And this isn't me chastising anyone else because I am a no shame zone. This is me evaluating my own like reading tolerance and what I'm looking for, because I want to be able to appreciate everything. And when I become a little too zoned in on needing high spice, I find it's difficult to step back and read something that might be a little bit softer. It can make it harder for me to read historicals that I want to take a bite out of because I feel like they're going to be boring, even if they're not. And the fact that even in my own mind, I equate spicy with exciting is something I want to be careful about. So I mean, as you're going to see with just the next couple books I recommend, it's not like I'm saying I need to go back to a steady diet of plain cuisine or you know, closed door cuisine, but it's the fact that I'm very happy I was able to enjoy Forbidden and not demand more of it than the author wanted to give and still find a very enjoyable read. It's just something I want to be aware of in myself, and I try to mix up my meals so that when I have a really spicy one, I can appreciate it for all that it's worth, right? The next book that I finished, I did actually read on my road trip to Montana, which was great because Redemption Ranch is in Montana. This is The Alias, and this is book 2 in Redemption Ranch by Lena Hendricks. Lena Hendricks is an author that I am trying to read more of. Actually, today, her new book just came out, and I'm so excited to read it. I missed out on an arc of that book, but that's okay. I don't care. I want to read more of it as soon as I can. But this one continues with the series, and this one is about a former mafia man whose name is Parker, and our heroine Sienna, who gets caught in the wrong place at the wrong time in the beginning of this book, and it leads to these two being on the run and finding their way to Redemption Ranch, where they pretend to be a married couple. Not even just pretend, they actually do get married at a courthouse so that she can't be forced to testify against him, or at least she thinks that's what she's doing. He knows a little bit better, but he's also like, if it'll help her feel more protected, let's do it. So they have this marriage of convenience, but they also do kind of like a fake marriage so that everybody else at the place believes that they're together as well. Parker is actually the brother of the hero from the badge. So he also has some relationships he needs to work on now that he is here, and he has, you know, kind of forced himself into proximity of his family members who are there. So yeah, this was a really good book. This one then is forced proximity. The heroine actually has some toys eventually too, so there's some fun spiciness that happens with those. And yeah, it was just a really beautiful relationship between them. I really love the found family aspect of the ranch. And these, of course, do have a little suspense element that comes into the end of both of these. I mean, they do involve like law enforcement and a witness protection program and like ex-mafia people. So there is some of that we're having to deal with in the story. But I feel like it's fit well into the story. It is kind of the bones of it. So it doesn't feel as jarring as some other romances coming out where there's a suspense element that has nothing to do with the book and then just shows up at the end for the third act conflict. This one, it very much is like set in from the beginning that like that's how these two meet, is because of that. So this was one that I gave 5 stars, and I can't wait to read more in the series for sure. Then there was Craving in His Blood by Zoe Draven. This is the next book in her Brides of Color series, I think it is. This one I read, I just gobbled this up. But one of the things I said about this in my weekly wrap-up when I read it is that I happened to have just reread a Zoe Draven before I read this one. And I'm really glad that I did, because it reminded me of her writing style and what I love about her. And she does do a very like slow burn for a lot of her books. This one wasn't slow burn because they are fated mates, and they are in this world, like the fated mate is that it's your perfect like blood mate, so you literally are like addicted to their blood and it makes you super powerful. These heroes are also berserkers, so when their mate's in danger they can bust out this berserker rage that's just insane. But I was also hesitant about this one because it had a bit of a flavor of a mistress romance. Even though the heroine is the fated mate, our hero is supposed to have a political marriage and marry someone of his kind to help their family, because his brother didn't do that. His brother made a different kind of strategic marriage, but it was more of a revenge scenario, and then he ended up falling in love with his mate. That was the first book. And in this one, he very much needs to do this marriage. And when he realizes that this heroine, who is a serving girl at this tavern, when he realizes that she is his bloodmate, there are other people who recognize it as well, and they do not want him to mess up this marriage. So there are people who try to conspire against them being together, even though it's not like he's planning to throw off his plans to be with this woman. People know the power of a bloodmate, and they know that just because he says he'll stay true to his word doesn't mean that he would in all actuality do that if he was tempted with his mate. So yeah, but there ends up being kind of a deal that they make with each other where she will feed him and he will help her do something for her father. This had a very touching storyline that had to do with honoring her father, who is actually an adopted father of her. And the story was just, it was so beautiful. So it was a slow burn to it, and there were some things that were frustrating since it had that like mistress element to it. And for so much of the book, the hero and the heroine are so sure that they're going to have to put each other aside once the time comes. That became very like exhausting to a certain point. But I love Zoe Draven's writing, and I just kept turning the page and I couldn't wait for what happened next. And so this one had to be on my favorites of the year. Next, I was lucky enough to read an arc of this book, even though it's definitely already out. I got the arc and it came out 2 days later. I read Minx by Sophie Lark. This is her newest release. I knew that it was coming in June, but it was still like a surprise when it was going to be dropping or not. I devoured this arc in about a 24-hour time period, but it was actually split over 2 days because I still happened to be on vacation at my sister's house, and this book has full page images in it. I can't wait to get my physical copy of it. Oh, it's gonna be so good. Amazon doesn't have the physical books available yet, but Barnes & Noble does. So hopefully Amazon's will be available soon if they get their shit together. Who knows? But Minx is an erotic escort romance between a billionaire and a escort who is literally the top of her class. She gets the best of the best, and she has been able to become whatever these men want, so much so that she chooses the client, she chooses for how long, and she chooses how many, and she has her rules in place. And then we have our hero Ramses, who wants to break all of her rules. He has a chance meeting with her, maybe not as chance as he thinks it is, and she's caught his attention, and that may be more than she's ready to handle, because Ramses will not be so easily manipulated or controlled as other clients that she has. But both of them enter into this, you know, client and escort relationship that quickly becomes more than either of them is prepared for. And I mean, Ramses, will be honest, he's not really trying to hold himself back, but Blake, she just feels herself spinning out of control, and she knows she needs to keep her heart out of it if she's able to do her job and still survive at the end. There aren't a lot of women who can do this job for a long time and still maintain who they are anymore. And she's definitely at fear of losing that with Ramses, because he pushes every boundary and takes her to places that she's never been before. And it's just beautiful. I've shared many times how I find erotic romance to be some of the most interesting. When sex is what pushes the story forward, it has to be very intentionally and emotionally done. It can't just be put slot A into slot B and spank me and call me a good girl. You have to be getting into the soul of both people. And Sophie Lark is someone who I have seen do that in many books before. Even in books where they weren't erotic romance and we had other things going on, I feel that her sex scenes almost always have more going into them. And this is one where she really took that assignment to heart and really told a very, very powerful story. So much so that she was able to include pet play into this. And honestly, I'm not one of the people who's saying, buy me a pair of ears now, because I very often read kinks and find them interesting that I would myself never want to do. But the way that she dives into the psychology of why this is working, and the way that these two communicate with each other after the scenes. This isn't a just, here's a kinky scene and here's a few cuddles and that's your aftercare. The way that they both speak with each other about what was working in this scene and why it felt so good to them is exactly what I want to see in more BDSM romance. Like, wow. Even in some authors who I very much respect their BDSM romance, I've never seen them quite dived into the way that it was in this one, and you can very much tell that a lot of research was done before doing this, and so it blew my socks off. It really did. Please don't be scared by hearing there's pet play in it. Of course, you're still allowed to have your triggers, but I will tell you that I've never read it like this before, and I have shared before how pet play isn't really my thing, and usually when it shows up, I feel like I need to skip those scenes because they make me uncomfortable. Like, I just had a book in April that I had to DNF it because I was like, we're going too far into this, I can't. Just, if you've been burned by it before and you don't feel comfortable, please still give Sophie's a try. Of course, again, like I said, mind your triggers if you think you can't, but I think you should give it a try. I really do. Trust Sophie Lark. If you love Sophie Lark and you're unsure about this, like, give her a go, because I would normally run far, far away from a book that said it had that in it, but because Sophie's name is on the title, I'm going to read it, and I'm really, really glad that I did. I'm still probably not going to be doing a specific rec video for pet play anytime soon, but I will recommend this book for a long, long time to come, and that is why, if you haven't figured out by now, this was my 6-star read of the month. Then the last one I wanted to mention actually kind of hit me by a surprise, and I honestly could have picked another book as my final favorite, but this one, I don't know. I read this one actually while I was at Book Bonanza. It was the book I was reading every night before bed, so it's actually a pretty short fanfic. It's, I think, only like 140 pages if you were to do it page-wise, but it just stuck with me so much, and I finished it in the airport on Sunday morning and was just very stunned by it. This one is actually kind of a horror romance, and it definitely has some twists in it, which I don't want to spoil, but it does involve some non-consensual things in this one. This one has a very extensive list of triggers, so check them out. But this is called Squirm by Mr. Benzedrine, and this has Draco as a serial killer, and it has Hermione as someone working for the Ministry, who then also ends up working for Draco's company, and they begin a sexual relationship with each other. And Draco, who has been a serial killer for a while now, isn't sure whether he's going to kill Hermione or just play with her, but he slowly gets drawn deeper and deeper into his relationship with her and starts to become a little trepidatious about if she will accept the darker parts of him. So that's actually all I want to say about this one, because it's not very long and I don't want to spoil anything. But like I said, there are some twists to this one, and it does still have an HEA. I was nervous about it because in some of the like author's notes, they were like, I never promised this would be an HEA. And I'm like, well, I want to know because I might need to leave if it's not. But it ended up being it does have one. So there we go. So there you go. Those are my favorite books that I read in June. Let me know what your favorite read was. Let me know if you're going to try any of my favorites. As always, I'll have links down below to these books if you would like to buy a copy of them using my link. That does help me out. There also will be a link to the fan fiction, which you can't buy, but you can download. The next video I'm actually about to film is the fan fiction readathon announcement. So maybe that's one you'll want to read for that, which will be exciting. So thank you so much for watching, my friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye.